Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, Jennifer and I are joined by a lovely guest. And before I tell you her name, I'm going to give a little background and a little bio information on our guest. But I want to start with a quote from her website, which I think is fantastic. And it totally just, I don't know, I think it really encapsulates who Sarah is. So the quote is, "It is important to me that my work be socially conscious. Think intersectional feminism and body positivity." I love that quote. And like I said, I think that really just strikes the right tone for Sarah and the work that she does. Sarah is I'm sorry, I already gave away her name. Sarah Hodges is a filmmaker, writer, director, actor, podcaster, and mental health advocate with a bachelor's in psychology and a day job as a docketing specialist for a patent law firm. Sarah Hodges, welcome to Madness Cafe.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk to you ladies.
We're so happy you're here.
So it's sort of funny, Raquel, that you started with a quote because I'm starting with a quote today also. Sort of strange. This is from Sarah's Instagram, which is what really caught our attention and why we wanted to have her on the show today, because she talks about some really important topics, really important in the world of feminism, and especially for women and how we view ourselves and how we value ourselves. And so this is a tough little ditty she wrote on her Instagram, but then we're going to talk about it. So this is what she said. 10 years ago, I only took 10 pictures of myself, and these were 3 of them. I was nearing the end of an emotionally abusive relationship and had also been diagnosed with PCOS, which can cause weight gain. As I started to gain weight, despite eating and exercising the same amount I had over the course of my 10-year eating disorder, I frantically scrambled to lose it. I cut grains, sugar, dairy, ate fewer than 1,000 calories a day, joined a CrossFit class, and ran for an hour every day. Despite all this, I kept gaining. 10 pounds became 20, 30, 40. After I had gained 50 pounds in a handful of months, I gave up. My body had clearly abandoned me, so I decided to abandon it. I told it that if I insisted on ignoring my efforts, I would feed it whatever the hell I wanted all the time. The reign of terror of my calorie restricting, exercise mandating eating disorder was finally over, but at great cost. Over the next 2 years, I gained 135 pounds. Damn, woman, tell us your story.
Yeah, so I, as a child and all the way up to 22, I was thin. I was, conventionally attractive and thin, and I feared gaining weight above all else. Like, it was like our society tells us that women are not valuable unless we're thin, and especially that was true in the 90s more so than it is now. And I just assumed that no one would ever love me or accept me if I gained weight, and it was just like this terror. Like, I can't even like describe it. It was like terror. I know that sounds dramatic, but
No, it's spot on.
that's and so when I actually did gain weight, it was horror that I felt. And it lasted a few years while I gained weight and after I'd gained the weight. It actually wasn't until I met someone who I'm still with him, until right around that year when I started to date again. I was like, I'm done with this. I'd had you read in the post, I'd had this emotionally abusive relationship who, like, he was very he basically ha- hated fat people. It made it abundantly clear that if I were to gain weight, it would be o- 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 over. And so that like reinforced all my fears from childhood. And um so it wasn't until I had broken up with him and 7 years of being single and not being willing to date that I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. Like, I need to get out there again. People love fat people all the time. That's what I hear. That's what I see. So let's just try it. And so I did. And after like 3 or 4 months of that, I met my current partner, and he's just been great. He's been like the complete opposite of my ex in terms of the weight stuff. So it just made me feel like that's not important. Like it really is not important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did you know you had an eating disorder?
I kind of figured it out at the time because whenever I would write my calories down in front of people, they
Mhm.
would like be like, "Oh, what?" Like, and like when I just was very controlling, I kind of sensed that something was wrong. It wasn't enough for me to be like, "You know what? I need to stop this. I need help." Because when you're in that, when
Mhm.
you're doing something that is like addictive and controlling like that, you don't want it to stop. Like I wanted to retain that control. So I was like, yeah, this is unhealthy, but I don't know how else to cope. So I just kept up with it until I gained weight and I couldn't control it. There was no more control. So I was like, all right, I guess this is just a sign that I should stop.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get to the point where you started to feel positive about your body? You work in body positivity. That's something that you talk a lot about in your Instagram account.
Hmm.
And how did you get there? I mean, I know that's a big question.
Hmm.
This is something that I struggle with. I mean, I've
Hmm.
been pretty open about this on the podcast, and I think people who know me realize I have body issues, but, like, how did you get to that point?
So it was a lot of things. So society, I feel, is shifting more towards like acceptance, and there are a lot more people who are overweight, and there are a lot more people who are models who are plus size. And basically it was a slow, very slow transition from not being even willing to entertain the idea that I need to shop at plus size stores. Like I like
Mhm.
for 8 months after I'd get started to gain the weight, I did not shop for plus size clothing. I wore my dad's old sweats. Like,
Mhm.
literally, like, 'cause I was going to school at the time, and when you go to college, like, I don't know if this was true when you both were in college, but people just wear sweats to
Well,
classes.
I went to Vanderbilt, people don't do that there.
Okay.
I'm just being
Yeah.
honest. People don't girls don't wear sweats to class, boys don't either. Don't wear sweats
So
to class at
at
Vanderbilt.
UGA in 2012, 2013, 2014, people were just wearing sweats to class.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna wear my dad's old sweats, and no one's gonna comment on it because who cares? But I avoided buying clothing my size for as long as I possibly could, and then I was like, you know what? I can't wear my dad's sweats for the rest of my life. Like I need to accept it. And I at that time I still didn't accept it, but I accepted it enough to buy clothes that fit. Over time, the more that I looked at women who wore these clothes, like I did a lot of online shopping, and so the more I looked at pictures of women who looked like my size, the more normal it seemed, and the more I was like, yeah, this is how I'm supposed to look. This is how it's okay to be plus size. And so it took years. And like I said, it really took other people who I tried to date and my current partner who really like drove the point home that like it doesn't matter. You are beautiful inside, but also you're beautiful outside. Like
Mhm.
you're beautiful at your weight
Mhm.
as it currently stands. Like
Yeah.
so I think it was really a combination of just seeing more representation of plus size bodies along with actual real people in my life telling me you are beautiful at your weight that made me kind of come to that. But yeah, like I said, it's been years that it took.
Did
Wow.
you seek any sort of, like, help with a therapist or any
I
professional services or anything like that?
I didn't. It's kind of strange because I have had a lot of therapy in my life, but during those years, I didn't have a therapist, and maybe I would have gotten over it a little faster if I'd had a therapist. But I just basically kind of came to it slowly on my own, and I will be the first to tell you, like, get a therapist. Like, I have one now,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's important to take care of your mental health. Your mental health is just as important, if not more important, than your physical health, because your mental health informs your physical health.
Mhm.
Even though I didn't have one at the time, like I would say, like I probably should have.
Has working with a therapist, or let me restate that. How has working with the therapist informed your body positivity work and just the way that you show up in the world?
So I'm going to be very honest. I've only had 2 sessions, so I literally
Okay.
just found a therapist.
Okay,
So
cool.
we haven't even discussed any of the stuff yet. We're
Mhm.
still getting to know each other. So yeah, I've only seen her twice. So
Okay. Okay. Well, that's
it's
cool. Well, how do you want your relationship with your therapist and the work that you do with her, how do you want that to play out? Because it is a relationship. It's a two-way
mhm.
thing. You have as much say in that relationship as she does.
I think for me, therapy is about getting all of my ideas outside of myself and saying them out loud and hearing them, but also having someone else witness them and being like, either like, yeah, that makes sense, or like, maybe you should rethink that, or maybe you shouldn't think about that in that way. That's very helpful to me to basically just, it's and even with like my best friends and like my partner and my parents, like if I just say like a weird thought I have out loud, even just hearing it sometimes I'll be like, yeah, that's not right. But
Mhm.
like for some reason when it's still in your head, you're like, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
I'm
should
right there
think
with you.
that way. Like
Mhm.
and then you say it, or then you say it and someone is like, well, no, like, so that's primarily what the therapist is good for. I have had a lot of issues with my mental health, not just with the eating disorder. I have bipolar, I have ADHD, OCD, anxiety. Like I have all kinds of fun stuff that I take meds for, and I've had therapy for my whole life. So,
So I'm really curious about your experience with this, and I'll share a little bit of my experience. When I was a teenager, I collected every single article I could find about anorexia and bulimia, and I cut it out of magazines and I pasted it into a notebook. I was obsessed with it.
mm,
I never did it, but I was
uh,
like obsessed with the idea of controlling food and weight that way.
mhm.
And I've thought a lot about what contributes to an eating disorder. Can you pinpoint in your life the things that you think kind of pushed you in that direction as
Mhm.
a child?
I think that obviously the obvious thing is society telling us that we need to look a certain way. That's kind of like what you would
Mhm.
think. But for me personally, my mood disorder, so when you're a kid, at least when I was a kid, they didn't believe that kids could have bipolar. So no one really knew
Mhm.
what to do with my mood stuff because back in the 90s, it was like, I don't know. She's like, she has mood swings, like, but there was no name for it. There was no treatment. There was no like idea about what that was. So I had severe mood swings every day, and the eating disorder was a way to like try to control that.
Mhm.
So I felt like I was out of control mood wise, but if I could control something,
Mhm.
and if the
That makes sense.
something was productive somehow and or, like make myself look a certain way to feel more confident. So I kind of
Mhm.
like use that as a way to control things.
Mhm.
It was about control.
Right. So if you
Yeah.
can't control that you fit the stereotype mentally, you can control how you fit the stereotype physically.
Mhm.
In your head, did you think, if I keep my body this certain way, then I will be happy and my mood will stay stable? You've
Mhm.
felt those things were connected?
Yeah. They weren't, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it honestly like I don't think I thought it through in those terms. I think it was just like a scrambling to feel okay, scrambling for some kind of control or sense of control. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
How did you finally get to the point, or what was it that brought you to the point where you were able to get a diagnosis that helped you with your mood disorder?
I actually, it's a little dramatic. I attempted suicide when I was 20. I'd had a 3-month manic episode followed by a 3-month depressive episode. And it was pretty significant. And after 3 months of being terribly depressed, I tried to kill myself and I ended up in a hospital. And that's when I was di- di- diagnosed.
Mhm.
And it was like a revelation. It was like, oh my God, like this makes sense. Why did no one, I had seen psychiatrists since I was 6 years old,
Mhm.
for OCD and stuff. And so when I finally got that diagnosis, it was like everything made sense. And then I was put on the right meds and it was like, oh my gosh, like it was like when I was put on the right meds, I was like, this is how normal people must feel. I can think, I can hear myself think, it was like the actual, like the best drug that I take, Risperdal. It literally felt like like I stopped vibrating. It was like I was still and like
Mm.
I don't know how to describe it. Like it was almost as if before I took the medicine, I was like just like this, like on a cellular level, just like kind of like couldn't rest, couldn't,
Like there's a
be
current
okay.
going through you maybe.
Yeah. And so on Risperdal, it was like I was still.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for sharing that. I even have people in my own family, but I have known people that are so afraid to get on medication to get help because they think that somehow makes them sick or wrong or whatever it is. And I think that people hearing that could give them so much hope and like, it's a thing and
yeah.
help. And
Yeah. And for so long, I was against medication. Like as a kid, like I was told when I was 6 years old that I needed to take medication. Like, and I was just like, why? Like, imagine telling a 6-year-old there's something wrong with your brain and you need to take
yeah.
this pill so you don't get in fights with your mom all the time and you like feel okay. Like when you're 6, that is a lot to take. And so I just fought it until I was, I think, 18.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
That makes total sense, actually.
Yeah.
Do you think that your ADHD diagnosis plays into it as well? And how did you get that diagnosis as
So I
well?
was 18, I was in college. I wasn't diagnosed till I was 18 because my brother is actually he has severe ADHD, like severe to the point where it's like, "Oh, that's a classic case," you know?
Yeah.
I and especially in the not 90s, like girls were not diagnosed as much and not there was not as much understanding about how it presented in girls, not unlike au- autism, how
Mhm.
there's not a good like, kind of indication for that. And so
Mhm.
it was not caught because I did well in school and I was a good student and it was just like, oh yeah, like I wasn't hyperactive, like I just was fine. But then in college, I was having more problems with school and with my job. And it was just like, I was just like, this is weird. Like, what's going on? And so was diagnosed, and then I took medication, and it was like night and day. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I can concentrate, I can work, I can. So it was like, not how did this get missed for so long? How did I survive school,
Right.
without it being a big thing? I think that I honestly don't know, but I
My daughter showed me this TikTok, just a real quick snippet the other day about the brain on ADHD and then the autistic brain. And it was showing like the person listening to someone talking or trying to listen to someone talking, but then the tea kettle went off and someone slammed the door and then this other thing. And the sound that she was listening to became almost so silent, and all these other things took all this precedence. And my daughter said, "That's how I hear." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how do you ever hear anything anyone's saying to you? How do
Yeah.
you separate it all out? If that's the way the
Yeah.
brain's working, how do you focus?" It was so amazing to
Mhm.
me. And that's how you felt?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's weird because my ADHD doesn't present as clearly as with classic cases. Like, I'm inattentive, and so that means, yes, I do get distracted by a lot of different things. I do get pulled in different directions, but it's more like it's not with hearing, but it's more like my thoughts just kind of
Interesting.
drift everywhere, and my medication basically allows me to, like, get on a track. The
Mm,
thing is, it's not like you still have to choose the track. Like,
Yeah.
you can make a bad decision when you're working and decide to organize your closet, like, you can choose the organize
Guilty.
your closet track when you're on the
yeah.
medication, and then you will ride that track because the medication helps you stay on track, but, like, yeah, it's like you have to take the medication, but you also have to make good choices, so
Yeah. But I think
mhm,
that's a human trait. Anytime we have work, suddenly our room needs to get organized.
mhm,
Suddenly our our closet
yeah,
definitely needs some work.
yeah,
One of the things that I note that I really appreciate about you, Sarah, is that it's your love of color and your love of adorning yourself, the eye makeup and the clothes and all the things, and sort of shifting back to the body positivity side of things.
mhm,
That just seems, in some ways, just directly opposite from somebody who's trying to, like, hide their body or trying not to, or somebody who isn't positive about their body, right?
mhm,
In that way, it seems to me like you're showing love for your body and for yourself,
mhm.
and how you got to that point where you're like, "Yep, I like all the color. I'm wearing it and people can see me and I'm totally fine with it."
I love every color, like, I don't know, I just, like, I even if some color doesn't look good against my skin tone, I'm just like, "I don't care, I like the color," like, I kind of tell myself, like, "You look good in everything," like, I'm just, like, have that kind of belief even though it's probably not true, but, like, I have always loved color. When I was younger, like a kid, I would match my spandex shorts with my socks. Like, if I wore red spandex shorts, I would wear red socks, and, like, I thought that was so, like, cool, and I had, like, spandex shorts and socks in every color, and when I started to wear makeup when I was 13, I would, like, match my makeup with my outfits, and I don't know, I still do that to this day, and I'm a lot better putting on makeup than I was when I was 13, but yeah, I just like, even the years that I was, well, not actually, no, the years that I was gaining weight, I didn't do the makeup or the clothing thing for a while, but then after I had gained, like, all the weight and had let myself buy clothes, I was like, "Ooh, I can do the bright colors and the makeup and the clothes, and even if no one will love me, I'll at least get to, like, do what I like to do," you know? I still
Yeah.
was like, "I'm still unlovable, but at least I'll get to wear the colors that I love." It is self-love in some ways, and also in some ways it's just what I'm addicted to color, basically. Yeah.
It's your gift. It's a gift. On your Instagram, you have had a lot of focus lately about taking pictures and different lighting, and what's that project all about?
My partner and I have an extra room in our house that we have decided to turn into a photo studio. And so for Christmas, from a few of my close friends and my parents and brother and my partner, they pitched in to get me, like, a backdrop holder with, like, backdrops and, like, lights, and my partner even got, like, a camera and some lenses, and, like, we've been teaching ourselves photography, not just for the studio, but we'd take it out and like take pictures on our walks and stuff. So that's kind of like a hobby thing for us now. We're just learning how to take pictures with a real camera as opposed to our phones, and it's been really interesting. And so each month our goal is to take an in studio themed photo shoot. So last month it was like a New Year's theme. This month it's a Valentine's theme, and it's gonna be the two of us. Like, I don't
Nice.
know. I don't think I'll post those on our on my my body positivity Instagram page just for his privacy, but it's just something that we have fun do. And yeah, I think it's a combination of wanting to express myself artistically and just wanting to do something to get other, and wanting to learn something that I've always wanted to learn, but just couldn't quite get my act together enough to do it. But yeah, I was looking through old like selfies, and that's what I posted that day that I think you're referencing. But like wow, like I have always been interested in this, but I didn't have a good camera, and I wasn't really like, I didn't own it. I was just kind of like doing it without thinking too much about it.
A lot of people talk about how Instagram can be very damaging to the self-image. For me, I didn't even know I was doing this, but I used the selfies to actually build self-esteem. I started posting the ones I loved all over Instagram, but also all over the walls of my house. And I kind of almost fell in love with myself a little bit through that process. Have you experienced a similar process?
So when I first started taking selfies after high school, I used it as a way to make myself temporarily feel like, hey, you're not ugly. Like it
Same.
didn't last. Like if like it would last a day. It would be like, okay, you took good selfies today, but
Mhm.
tomorrow you're got to start from scratch. You know, you're not the same person you were yesterday. I know that sounds insane, but like that's how I thought. That's literally how I thought. It was a temporary way to make myself feel better and boost my self-esteem, but it didn't actually work. Now it's more like a an artistic expression. It's more like, look at these
Mm.
things I put together. Look at this makeup. Look at the outfit, you know, and it doesn't really affect my self-esteem as much as it used to. It just is kind of like, I like the way this looks, I guess.
Mm. Well, I'm impressed with both of you as far as that goes, the whole building self-esteem using selfies idea,
Mhm.
because I almost hate getting my picture taken. Like, I'm better than I used to be, right? But it is so rare that I have a picture of myself that I like.
You did it this week.
I did,
You
I
had a
did
good
take a picture
picture this
this week.
week that you really
I
like,
did,
and
I did
it's
post it on
awesome.
I did, thank you. I did post on my Instagram this week a picture of myself that I like, but it's so rare. So, but now that I hear myself talking about it, I'm like, well, maybe it's a numbers game. Maybe I just need to take more
Take a
pictures.
It
lot
is
of
a
them.
numbers
It's a
game.
numbers game. You can't just like point at once and be like,
Yeah,
"That's
it is
it.
a numbers game.
It's done." Like, you know, you have to take hundreds of pictures. I'm not saying you
Wow.
should, but like, Raquel, you're so pretty. Like
Beautiful.
that's one of the first things like I thought of. I was like, "Wow, she's so pretty." Like when we first met, I was like, "Wow."
You are
Like
so you're so very kind to me. Thank you very much. And I'm getting better about that. I am getting better about that whole thing. So thank you very much for saying that. Listeners, I did not pay her to say that.
she didn't. She did not. She didn't expect it.
I do think it can go either way though, because I have someone that takes pictures and sometimes it's actually detrimental to her self-esteem because if she's not in the right frame of mind, her nose is off or her hair's not parted the right way or she doesn't like her shoulders or and it goes on and on and on. Like she will nitpick everything about herself.
Mhm.
I wasn't doing that when I was posting the pictures. The ones I didn't
Mhm.
like, I was just deleting and moving through, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that one, I like that one." So
Right.
I think it could have either effect depending
It depends
on
on who you are. Yeah.
right. And so
Mhm.
I don't think it's something you can recommend to everybody to
Right.
start. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. And it's like the people who are searching through the internet also for self-esteem, and they're doing that comparison thing where they're like, oh, I will never have that. I will never look like that. Why don't I look? And that can be very
Yeah,
detrimental
no,
as
that's
well.
not good. That's not good. See, what I do is I look at pictures of people who either look like me, who are as heavy as I am, or more heavy, or somehow in some way similar to me, and make me feel like, okay, well, they're happy.
Mhm.
So they look like me, they remind me of myself, like I
Yeah.
I should be,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that kind of comparison. It's
Yeah.
not like a looking at models who are very thin and being like, I want to be like that. It's more like, well, that's unattainable. So I'm not even going to think
Look.
about that. Aspire. Like it's more like,
Yeah.
if it makes them happy, but like I don't think that starving myself would make me happy. So
Right. Yeah, and it's funny that you guys are basically talking about like your Instagram feed and looking at things that are positive and supportive as opposed to things that aren't, because I've gone through phases where I've had to go through and delete people that I was following on Instagram or, accounts or whatever, because I was like, okay, that's not making me feel good about myself. Or
mhm,
Yeah.
I realized, whoa, okay, I'm comparing myself to that, and that's not cool. Like,
mhm.
and so it's an actual specific decision that I have to make from time to time to delete certain things that I'm following on Instagram because
That
they
made
they
me
don't do a good things for my head or for my self-esteem.
that made me think of something else Sarah posted. So she posted this too, because this happens on Instagram. She said, in college, I took a lot of self portraits. I had abysmal self esteem, but when I posed for pictures, I put on a confident face and tried to convince myself that I was beautiful, even though I didn't believe it. Selfies are viewed as being vain and narcissistic, but for me, it was a coping technique to combat my self loathing and fear that I wasn't good enough and would never find people who'd love me. I still take selfies, but not for the same reasons. I'm more confident now, so selfies are about sharing my creativity in my makeup, clothing, lighting, location, and decor. Selfies are an artistic expression now, not a search for self validation. It's that self validation piece.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That is the
Yeah.
important. Why do we, I'm just asking both your opinion, why do we as women think our validation, our value in this world is based solely on our physical appearance and how much we weigh? Why do we think that?
I
It's
mean,
it's society.
movies, TV shows, ads,
Mhm.
primarily, like that's where we all see the ideal.
But don't you even think it's like the role of a because we're all convinced that we're supposed to attract a man, get married, be a wife. I don't know. People are moving away from that, but it's still heavy in our society. So to attract a man, why do we think it's not our brain they're interested in? They're interested in our face and our body.
Mhm.
Well, we're told in a lot of different ways that that's all they care about, which is, by the way, is not true.
Right.
It's kind of unfair to men as well. It's like unfair to
Right.
Right.
everyone. Like it kind of paints them as these shallow, minded, like libidinous monsters,
Right.
and that's not true either. So I think it's a disservice to both of us to believe that.
That's a good point.
How did it
Yeah.
if you don't wanna get this personal, you just say no. How did your partner convey to you that you were good enough and more than good enough? He, like, loves you and is excited to be with you. Like,
Yeah.
how did he convey that to you?
I mean, with words, actions, everything. Like he literally would say it with words, but he'd also in every way he touched me and things we do together, and he held my hand in crowds in front of every kissed me in front of other people and totally was confident about being with me, and just so many ways. Like so yeah, it wasn't just like a well, he's with me, so yeah, by default. It was no, he was very explicit
Mhm.
in conveying that.
That's so awesome, and you
Yeah.
deserve it so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you do. I mean,
Oh,
you're
thank you.
awesome. You
Thank
really
you.
are.
Oh,
You're
you guys are awesome too. My
oh,
gosh.
thank you. I mean, you're smart, you're talented, I mean, I listed off what, like half a dozen things, which probably don't even were
Touch
just
the
probably the
surface.
tip of the iceberg of all the things that you do. I mean, you're incredibly creative in a million different ways. You're writing, which everything you write just for yourself. You write for Instagram. You write screenplays. You're an actor. You are a podcaster. I mean, all these things that add to the greatness that you are, right? Like these
Oh,
are things that are so admirable, and you're very good at all of them. And even if you weren't, they bring you so much joy that's the important thing that I think we all can take from all of the things that you do, is that these things bring you joy, and that adds to the light that shines from your soul. I mean, just looking at the space behind you, I mean, that's a beautiful space.
it's blown
No,
out.
it's gorgeous. It's
Oh,
beautiful. I
thank
mean, it's
you.
decorated and curated, and it's just so pretty. And there's no question here. I'm just basically hyping you up. Like I just think that
Oh, thank you so
you
much.
do so
Oh,
many
that's
great
so
things.
sweet.
So yeah, of course he's gonna love you. I mean,
Yeah.
you are an
Oh,
amazing person, and you're incredibly talented, and all of that shows in who you are and the work that you do.
And I think
yeah.
the real issue we have here is that we have just been trained. We have been groomed. I heard this
Mhm,
word on another podcast and it made so much sense to me. We have been groomed to believe that our value is this single thing. And really, even if we didn't have all the other stuff, just because we're human and born, inherently we have value.
mhm,
It doesn't have to be a show off event, right?
Mm.
We're just, we're humans, so we're beautiful.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
there's something beautiful about every person. And like, I personally don't have as much criticalness about anyone else than I did about myself. Like, it
Same.
wasn't like an equal, like, it was like, well, I'm fat and like everyone else who's fat is just awful. And like, no, like, it was more like, well, I'm fat, but everyone else is fine. Like, everyone else is okay, but not me.
mhm,
Isn't that
yeah,
interesting? I did that too.
yeah,
Mhm.
same. We're always our own worst critic. It's crazy. Oh,
Yeah.
What are the other things that you do, Rick? What is the playwriting? What are you doing there?
So I write a bunch of different things. I can write screenplays or plays or poems or short stories, personal essays, anything that I love to tell stories, so I just love to write. And I also am a filmmaker. I've made a handful of short films, and recently my best friend and I shot and cut together a short film called "Could This Have Been an Email?" It's like a horror spoof of basically like phone calls are very scary
mhm,
and horrifying, and so it's kind of a joke about that. And we're going to make two more this year, and we have something in the works that we're writing. So I definitely create a lot with my best friend, and we also do podcasting together. We've done three podcasts so far. They all discuss films. We're big film buffs, and so we like to discuss filmmaking and watching films and
mhm.
discuss like how women are portrayed in the films. And I also, what else do I do? Yeah, it's mostly artistic stuff like filmmaking and writing and
Sarah is referring to Nicole Kemper,
Nicole
who
Kemper.
was a
Yes,
previous guest on the
really
show. Yes. Mhm,
nice.
mhm, yes. Yeah, it was
Yes.
our Halloween episode where we talked about women
Horror
in
films.
horror movies.
Oh,
So,
nice. Yes,
yeah,
Nicole is my bestie for
yeah,
life. So we are like soulmates. I mean, like, I love my partner. She loves her partner, but we are like soul sisters. So yeah,
nice.
love her.
Very cool. Yeah, and you guys have your podcasts are so great. So you guys work really well together.
We do.
So,
Yeah,
very
we've
cool.
co-directed some things together too, which people are usually dubious of people who like two people who direct something. They're like, how can there be two directors, but like we somehow like make it work? And so yeah, it's been great working with her.
How did she, your best friend, she's been your best friend a long time. How
8
did she
years. Yeah.
oh yeah. How did she support you through the transition of having an eating disorder, gaining all the weight, earning your body positivity,
Hmm.
doing your podcast, putting it
Yeah.
all out there? How was her support?
So she met me when I was just like starting to gain the weight. So when I met her, I had gained maybe like 30 pounds, I think. So she saw all of that from like when I had just broken up with my ex. She is just very supportive and very like, you're beautiful. You will find someone who loves you. Like that's been her refrain this entire time. Like you're a goddess, like kind of like that kind of supportive thing. Like always believes in me and doesn't care how I look or, I mean, she not in a way that like you look bad, but who cares? It's not like that. It's like like you look good and you
Yeah.
deserve someone who loves you. And it took her a while to trust that my partner was the one because when you're best friends with someone, you want to make sure they're with the best. And so
Mhm,
like she would have been skeptical of anyone.
mhm.
But yeah, but she's sold.
Where do you see your work going in the next 5 years or the next 10 years
So
in the
while
future?
I did bring up the filmmaking, I would like to continue filmmaking.
Mhm.
However, I'm working on a book right now. And
Oh,
I've
okay.
been listening to a lot of podcasts about books and
Ooh,
writing books and selling books and marketing books and writing, just like getting like basically to write a book is so much work and you just basically have to write a first draft and then edit it and like I've always been a perfectionist. I'm just getting to accept that I will need to write multiple drafts because I've always just kind of like been able to write kind of a first draft and have it be like good, have it be okay. But now I'm just like, you know what? That's not how it works. To write a whole book, like it's different. If you're writing a short film, if you're writing a personal essay, if you're writing a short story, like sure, maybe your first draft, second draft are like good enough to like that's it. But a book is so much more time and effort that you have to put into it. So I am just each day I set aside an hour or two and I just either brainstorm or outline or write a scene or write the next draft of a scene. I'm just kind of like getting to know the characters and I
mhm.
have the story kind of like the whole arc kind of mapped out, but I still like to outline things first and then write. Anyway,
Okay.
that I probably got too detailed there.
No,
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 we're
That's what
that's
I'm
actually
working
both
on right now.
fascinated with
Yeah.
that.
sounds like it's gonna be fiction?
Yes, it's gonna be fiction and fantasy-ish, I
Okay,
guess, or like surreal-ish. I don't know. Yeah,
okay.
it's I always like to have stories that are grounded emotionally, but then
Mhm,
have an element that is like sci-fi or fantasy, like an element that's
mhm,
just like weird and
mhm,
out there, but have it be like emotionally truthful.
mm.
So that's kind of the common thread between everything I write. Has to be
Are you
weird.
are you a character in it?
It's a little bit based on aspects of my life and aspects of the 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 lives of the people I know. I mean, I think that everyone who writes bases a little bit of like some either one character or all of their characters are pieces of
Mhm.
themselves.
Yeah,
So you can't escape that. So yes, a lot of me will be in the book.
that's cool.
Well, I'm interested in some of the, podcasts that you said that you've been listening to about the process of writing a book or
Yeah.
publishing a book or any of what are some of those podcasts that you've been
So
listening to?
my favorite two podcasts are Right Now, which is WRITE, Right
Mhm.
Now. I started to listen to it while I work. And I just needed my brain to think about something else. So I've just been listening to these podcasts and kind of getting inspiration as I work. So Right Now
Mhm.
and The Shit No One Tells You About Right Writing is
Oh, okay.
the second one. That
Okay.
is a great one because they actually have a segment on each episode
Mhm.
called Books with Hooks, and it's basically where these two literary agents read, like, they're sent queries, and
Mhm.
queries are basically these letters that authors send to agents saying, I have this book, and they tell you a bit about it, and then if the agent wants to read the book, then they'll reply. But basically the agents review and critique the queries
Mhm.
and the first 5 pages of the books. So
Mm.
I've been listening to hundreds of those, like, just like all those books, and kind of like making mental notes about, like, okay, well, they didn't like this, and this is something you should stay away from, and this is something they like. And even though it's just two agents, they've had guest agents, and they kind of say, well, this is my taste, and then this is something that in the industry is something that is just commonly, like, everyone wants this versus, so
Mhm.
they differentiate what's their taste versus what is something that everyone wants.
Okay.
So it's just been illuminating, and I find myself hearing certain things that I've heard on the podcast in my head as I write, kind of like pushing me along and being like, well, that's okay. And like, well, it's not going to be perfect. You just need to get it out there. Like hearing
Right.
the things that I've heard, kind of, it's like they're in the room with me, helping me keep going. So yeah, I would definitely recommend those, and I'm sure there are more, but I haven't gotten to them yet.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check those out.
Mhm.
Do you? Because we've had some other authors on, and, they bring up the whole publishing journey, basically,
Mhm.
and they do talk a little bit about self-publishing. Is that something that you would be interested in, or do you think you wanna go the traditional route with or is it too early to even
I
ask that question?
think, well, it's it's it might be too early, but it's something I've thought about. I think I might try to get an agent just at
Mhm,
first. If
mhm,
it totally doesn't work, then I would self-publish. But listening to the shit no one tells you about writing has kind of made me feel like, yeah, like, I feel like I'm hearing a lot about what can be done, and I feel like I'm getting a really good sense about what they want, and
mhm,
I could do this. I think my hesitation with going the traditional route was just not knowing that much about it.
right.
But
Yeah.
self-publishing is actually very hard. It's not just the publishing aspect, but it's the marketing aspect
Mm,
that
mhm.
basically you have to be very good at marketing, and I don't know if I am. So um I would definitely want the help of a publisher. I think I have enough talent to get a an 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 agent. I hope so. If I put in the work. Um, I don't know.
Of course. Well, you'll have to keep us posted. So, is there anything that we didn't ask you or anything that you really wanted to delve into?
I don't think so. I think talking about the mental health aspect, the bo- the the body positivity aspect, and the
Mm.
creative aspect. I think that's me in a nutshell. Like, so I love the questions you asked, and I really enjoyed ta- talking to you. I don't think there's anything else I was dying to say besides what's been said.
Well, thank you so much for being with us and for being so candid and so honest about your journey, because it has involved all of what we talked about, the mental health concerns and the body positivity and creativity. And we're all multifaceted human beings, and everything affects something else, not just within us but in society as a whole. So I'm hoping that someone will hear this and realize that if you're going through something hard, keep going, because that's not the end of it.
Mhm.
You know,
100%.
at the end of it, you have all the color and all the joy and all the creativity left to partake in.
Mhm.
And you're lovable.
You are
Aw,
very lovable.
thank you. You
Yeah.
both are too. I really enjoyed. I love Raquel, of course, and I really enjoyed meeting you, Jennifer.
Thank you. You too. I've
Thank
really
you.
admired your Instagram.
Oh, thank you.
Really have. Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
helped. It's
Yeah.
helped. It's helped me.
Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
glad.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing with us, not just here, but on your Instagram account too.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Oh, that was so good.
Yeah. You know
That's
what I
so-
really loved about it?
What?
Number one, that she's so bright. But
Mhm.
number two, I feel like she really embodies the struggle of the successful American woman. Like,
Mm.
just what's going on with us all as a society. And I know that when people listen to what she has to say and they go find her on Instagram and her website and see the podcast and everything she's doing, it's going to inspire people to understand that we are already beautiful. It's not
Mhm.
it's not you look okay, you look good enough. That we're already beautiful and we deserve to have it all and we are inherently valuable.
Perfect. I love that. I think that's a great way to end things, Jennifer. Thank you. Mwah.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.